This conference will now be
Okay,
recorded.
good. So welcome everybody, and once again, a thank you to Rivka and Rachel for putting together the beautiful lunch. Thank you all for coming and joining us. Next Thursday, I will not be here, but Rabbi Rock will be picking up many of my responsibilities while I'm away. And the plan is, except for certain weeks where he will not be able to, there will be the Tuesday morning Parsha class, and there will be lunch and learn. So I will send out an email, and I think I'll just have that email go out repeatedly every Monday, just with the classes, and there will be listed which weeks he will not be doing the lunch and learn and the parsha. And besides that, and please God, I'll be back at the end of July, and then we will pick up again. Okay. So today's, I'm sorry, I'm going to Israel. Yes, that's Hashem. Yes, yes.
You have children scattered all over the world.
I do. But I have one son who's in Israel, but as I say, Libi b'Mizrach is the expression. All right, my heart is in the east. So yeah, that's where we will be. But as is Hashem. Okay, so when it comes to rituals, so that has often been leveled against Judaism. I think early Christianity, right, many issues with, oh, you get so bogged down in all this minutia, right? Love your neighbor, turn the other cheek, right? And I think fairly tragically, we've seen how when things are not rooted, and we'll get into that more, then things can just go all off the tracks. Meaning, Christianity will look at the glorious times of the Crusades, the glorious time of the Crusades as they went to rescue Jerusalem from the infidels, right? And many saints are from that period, and great war leaders, and well, the Jewish community looks at the Crusades as a time where there was murder and rape and pillage of on their way to Jerusalem. There was it was not turning the other cheek. It was not kindness and love. Right? What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? There wasn't all that much peace, love, and understanding. There was murder, rape, carnage, and human beings. And every time we do it, not every time we do a mitzvah, but whenever we make those mitzvot, those commandments which we make a blessing, the blessing is Asher Kiddishanu b'mitzvotav, that we become holy, we become sanctified by doing the mitzvot. But the idea is that we are physical beings, and therefore it's by doing and being involved in a physical act, that is what nikadesh, that is what can transform and can change a person. But when it's just left into the philosophical realm, into the intellectual realm, so then it doesn't change the person. Famous story that I think whoever it was, one of the great Greek philosophers, was involved in some very non-moral activity, and the explanation was, when I wear my cloak, I am the great whoever it was. When I take off my cloak, I'm like anyone else. And Plato, thank you, right? And the story goes that the head of a morals and ethics department at a university was not involved in the most moral and ethical relationships with some of his female students. And when he was asked, how could you, as the head of the moral and ethics department, so he said, the head of the math department doesn't need to be a triangle. So there's that which you teach, and there's that which you are, and by Judaism, that does not cut it. Not to say that we haven't had people who were very respected who did some pretty bad things, right? But they quickly become demoted from their respected position, and we can't. I think that's what happens, right? Look, there was a time in the world where sexual abuse, when it's happening in schools and institutions, it wasn't fully understood, it wasn't fully appreciated, the damage that it caused to others, and it was not fully appreciated that the person couldn't just, turn over another leaf, and therefore there was, not just in the Jewish schools also, a lot of airtime given to the Catholic Church and different with those situations. But it happens elsewhere also. And whereas I would say going back 30, 40 years, these things were often covered over or minimized or were sent out to another place, and the person said he won't do it again, and it was taken at face value. But now, certainly, the understanding is that that's not something that anyone can rely on, and we have to involve the secular authorities, and it needs to be stopped. So yes, Steve.
We're consistent. We try to be consistent.
Yeah. Well, we demand consistency, right? Each of us, we have our own areas where we're better or worse, but there needs to be this consistency. So
talking about consequences, but we see this very clear. We had this shameful behavior, not the Jews, okay, mind you, but people that come to protest, everything is fine, but you really, really made them feel like not human beings, animals, and you give them like minimum respect to being human beings, even though they can't even tell that.
I'm not saying every person. I'm not saying.
But nobody even in the government said anything.
Yeah. What I'm yeah. Look, within the political realm, there are very strong differences and different opinions and how things should be treated, right? But I'm talking about, hello there, Bruce. Good to see you. I'm talking about thievery. I'm talking about sexual exploitation, things like that. That it can't be condoned. So again, this is the third of the NJOP courses, and there they bring some of the statistics are old, right? However, it hasn't gotten any better. Let's put it like that, right? And statistics in American society, right? How long does the average marriage last?
6 or 7 years?
Yeah, thereabouts, 6 or 7 years, right? For suicide, for children under the age 15, the rate in the United States is twice the rate of other countries. For suicides involving firearms, it's almost 11 times the rate of other countries combined. So according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, the average teenage television viewer, now this is outdated because who watches television now? Everyone's got all their streamings and everything, is exposed annually to more than 14,000 sexual references, innuendos, jokes, many quite explicit, right? And now add in the internet, right, which is for many is completely unfiltered, and what's available out there is is very, very damaging and very, very depressing.
Concerning.
It's interesting that you say that because when I watch television now, the language that's used is language that never used to be used before.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how far back I'm going.
Yeah,
but-
well, look, television has to keep up with cable, and cable has to keep up with the internet. Right? I remember I grew up watching I Love Lucy, right? And famously, the parents' bedroom had to have two separate beds, right? The beds couldn't be together, and I don't think they were able to actually say the word pregnant. I don't think they were able to say that pregnant.
Everyone wore pajamas.
I'm sorry.
And everyone wore pajamas.
They wore pajamas. Yeah, yeah. So it's right. The average American child exposed to on television again 12,000 murders, rapes, and assaults. Right, and two University of Illinois psychologists concluded the amount of television watched at age 8 is the single best predictor of violent behavior at age 30. So we have a society when it comes to theft, right? So shoplifting, more than 10 billion worth of goods are stolen from retailers each year. I think we've gotten to see this, how more and more things are under lock and key, right? At stores, when you go to these different stores, and right, teachers victim of non-fatal crimes at school, right? Thefts, violent crimes, right? I mean, it's a tough world out there, right? And society, when it's just this idea of yes, do the right thing, Nancy Reagan, just say no, and all these things, right? It needs to be rooted in something, right? So actually, the first of the sources, let's learn through Cain and Hevel. We have it on the source sheet, right? Both in Hebrew and in English. I'm going to read the Hebrew, translate to English, so everyone should follow as they best are able. V'Adam yadet Chava ishto, and Adam knew his wife Eve. V'Tahar, she became pregnant. V'Telit et Cain, and she gave birth to Cain, saying, Kiniti ish et Hashem, I have now gained something or acquired along with God. I'm also now a creator of sorts like God. V'Tosef laledet et Achiv et Hevel, she then gave birth again to his brother Hevel. V'Hevel roet son. Hevel was a shepherd. The Cain haya oved adama, and Cain became a tiller of the soil.
Is the name Cain in Hebrew means
Koneh, to acquire. Yes.
Was that killer or tiller?
Vayhimi kates yamim, and it was after a course of time. Vayave Cain mipri adama mincha Hashem. The whole idea of bringing this gift to Hashem, that was Cain's idea. That was Cain's initiative. And that is accentuated. Hevel hevi gamhu. And Hevel, with my kids, we used to say, me too, even I want, right? That's what it says here. And Hevel hevi gamhu, he also brought. Whereas Cain brought from the fruit of the earth, the fruit of the soil, as he was the tiller of the soil. Hevel, right, who was the shepherd, he brought mibichorot sono, from the choicest of his flock, umechel behen, right, the choicest. Vayisha Hashem el Hevel vel minchato, Hashem turned to Hevel and his offering, and ve'el Cain v'chaso lo sha'a, but he did not turn to Cain and his offering. Vayicha leCain ma'or v'ponav, and Cain was very distressed; his face fell. Vayomer Hashem el Cain, Hashem said to Cain, Lama charalach v'lama naflu panecha. Why Why are you so distressed? Why is your face fallen? Hello, im tetiv, se'et. If you do that which is right, se'et, you will be uplifted. Vim lo tetiv, but if you will not, lepetach chatat rovet, then sin will be crouching at the door. Ve'elecha teshukato, and to you its urge will be on you. Ve'ata timshol bo, right? The English says, yet you can be its master. So therefore, Kayin, right? You took a wrong turn, correct it. Move forward in a positive manner.
It's totally puzzling that he takes the initiative.
Yes, yes, he took the initiative,
this
and we're
doesn't
going to
bother
deal with
Rashi.
that. But keep in mind, I could take the initiative and bring something that is not a fitting offering. Someone else can see and follow that. Good idea, Ciner. And I'm going to bring something that is fitting. So Hashem judges each person according to what it is that they could be doing and should be doing. And Cain, wonderfully, who took the initiative, follow through, and don't bring from the refuse, from the scraps, right? Hevel, okay, he saw that and said, okay, that's the right thing to do, beautiful, and he brought in the correct manner. Now, just as an aside over here, there's a beautiful idea on this pasuk. Right, I translated it as, right, if you do that which is right, there will be uplift. If you do not do right, sin crouches or couches at the door. Its urge is toward you, yet you can be its master. Yet, v'atatzim shobo. Another way that it's explained is that the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, its job, I always like to say, is like a personal trainer to push us to do the best we can do. And he wants to be defeated. And then when they read this verse, ve'elecha teshukato, his desire is by you, v'ata timshol bo. What is his desire? That you should rule over him. Not that yet you can rule over him. His desire is that you should rule over him. But let's just go forward simply. And what we have over here is Cain took the initiative. It was Cain's idea. It was Cain's creativity of, hey, we should go forward and we should bring an offering to God. However, he came up short. And then, as we know, right, and then they're out in the field. Cain arose and killed against Hevel, his brother, and he killed him. Hashem said to Cain, where is Hevel, your brother? I don't know. Hashomer achi anochi. Am I the guardian? Am I responsible for my brother? Hashem said, the voice of the blood of your brother is calling out from the earth, right? And therefore, he said to him, now, when you work the ground, it will not give its strength to you. You will be wandering through the land. And then it goes on. Cain was with his wife, gave birth to Chanoch. And what was Chanoch? He was a builder. But he Boneir. He built a city. And he called the name of the city Kishem Beno Chanoch. Ada gave birth to Yaval. Who was Yaval? Hu Avi Yoshev Ohel Umikne. He was the ancestor of those who dwelled in tents amongst herds. Shem Achiv Yuval. Hu Avi Kol Tofes Kinor V'Ugav. Right? He was the inventor or the initiator of those who play the kinor, the lyre, and the ugav, another type of musical instrument. Tzila Gamiel died Tuval Kayin. And what did he do? He was the one, Lotesh Kol Choresh Nechoshet Ubarzel, right? He forged all these different tools of copper and iron, right? So we see over here that out from this murderer came tremendous tremendous creativity. Hevel, actually, you mentioned the name Cain, right? That comes from the word koneh, to acquire, right? Hevel is breath.
Yeah, Hobel.
Right. The book of Ecclesiastes. Hevel Havalim. Or now he says we need to redo the vanity. I say vanity of vanities. Hevel Havalim. Right. But that's what Hevel is breath. A lot of hot air. Right. And in Gan Eden, we were given in the Garden of Eden, it was la'ovda u'l'shomra, to work it and to guard it. Cain was the worker, right? Havel was more of the passive. He was the shepherd. He followed Cain's initiative, right? He doesn't create. He has no children, right? But it is the murderer and the descendants of Cain who build the city, right? He's not simply a guardian. He's a worker. He's a creator. He makes these dramatic steps for the development of humankind. Work the ground, build cities, musical instruments, tools, copper and iron. It is the violent person who creates.
The executive
Right.
comes from the word execute is executive.
Interesting. Yeah. Right. Every act of creativity involves a certain degree of violence, right? You've got to go against what was. I'm sorry.
Assertion.
You have to assert. You have to make changes, right? You don't just sit with the status quo in a passive manner, right? You step forward, right? Yes.
I have a couple of questions going back to the beginning. You said beginning יצרים ויביא קין מפרי האדמה ממך לאדוני. Doesn't say anywhere that I can see that it was scrap or
Correct.
not appropriate
Correct.
or wasn't with good intention. So
Correct.
how do we learn about that? And
Correct.
then
Well, but look at the contrast, how it describes what.
right, so this brings me
So by if Hevel brought the choice, the fruits, so the contrast is one brought the choicest and the fattest, and the other brought fruits. Perot.
and how do we understand from the text that God liked one's offering and disliked the other one?
Oh, that's what Pasuk says. Sha'ah, to turn to it.
Yeah, but how did
Oh.
I know about that?
So I'm pretty sure Rashi there says that a fire came down and consumed one and not the other. Yeah. So there was a very clear acceptance of one and not of the other. Yeah.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
what does it mean in the course of time? What did they know to bring?
So again, that's Cain's understanding and creativity, right? If we're living in God's world and everything's coming from God, right? So therefore, let us bring a gift to God, right? But actually, it's also explained over here that I can do what I have to do, and therefore I do minimally, or I could do what I'm overflowing with a sense of purpose and mission to do, right? But once again, that really is the point over here, David. That Cain had that creativity, and he said, "Oh, we should bring something to God. We should bring an offering to God." Again, that is this creativity, though it went south, meaning along with that creativity often is, or there is inherent in it almost a certain degree of violence, of taking things apart, right? So the challenge then is, how do we harness this positive creativity, right? Whereas keeping the negative aspects in check, under control, right? And that is where Torah and Jewish life come in. Okay, we know when I'm studying with bar mitzvah boys or bar mitzvah girls. With bar mitzvah boys, it's studying the Torah reading. So if there's a certain word that they keep mispronouncing, I'll say, let's say it. Let's say after me. Say it 10 times. Say it 10 times. Say it 10 times. Why? Because there's something that's called, and if the kid's an athlete, I give him this example. The kid's a musician, I give him this example, right? But there's muscle memory, right? The best basketball players in the world, someone like Alan Berezovsky, one of the best, one of the finest. So Alan, when they go to the foul line, before they shoot, what do? Right?
They take a couple of dribbles, get
Right.
ready.
And they go through the motion, though. They often go through the motion, right? There's that muscle memory, right? Right. The French Open is happening now, right? When they miss a shot, so they go off to the side, and what do? Right? Right? I'm doing it wrong, I'm sure. But there's the muscle memory, right? You're learning. I remember when I learned guitar, until I could get those first chords, to have my fingers arranged properly, the first chords, it was hard. But after a while, you have the muscle memory. You just go into the A minor, into the C, G, D, whatever it is. You have this muscle memory. That's how we work. When we do something, then it becomes a part of who we are, and then it becomes natural. It becomes natural, right? These top athletes, right? They're not thinking, let me hit the ball this way. That's just natural. That's just how their body moves. They've got, a hundredth of a second to respond to a serve coming in at 150 miles an hour, right? It's not this active decision, right? But they've just trained themselves, and the practice is what brings them to acting in the way they want to act when that's their natural action, their natural reaction. And we, with our rituals, we have over and over and over, like the Rambam famously was asked, is it better to give $100 to one charity or to give $1 to 100 different? And he said, if you give $1 to 100 different places, right? So then you've trained yourself. You've trained yourself to give. It becomes a natural thing for you. We all want to hold on to what we have, but when we give, then all of a sudden that opens things up. We have the pushka over here, right? So every day a person could put in a quarter, $1. Doesn't matter what goes in, right? But by doing, that is how a person starts to feel, right? Not acting on impulse, right? So I've told this story many times of the woman checking out of the grocery store, and her kid is having a tantrum. I want. And then the mother leans over, whispers something to the kid's ear, and quiet. Another mother is there saying, whoa, please share with me the magic formula that you have, that incantation that stopped that tantrum just right in its tracks. And the woman explained, well, we are Orthodox Jews, and we have what we're allowed to eat, what we're not allowed to eat. It's called kosher. And I whispered in his ear, the candy is not kosher. And at that point, my child knew this was non-negotiable, right? Nothing was going to change it, right? And kashrut teaches that we don't jump, we don't act on impulse, right? Just because I want it, it doesn't mean I'm going to go ahead and take it. Family purity, right? Tarat hamishpacha. right? Takes this young married couple, and there are parameters. There are parameters, and that helps to lead towards a very, very respectful relationship where it's not simply, I want or impulse or lust, right? But it's there are controls. There are controls on it. Yes, Steve.
You brought it up, I'm thinking, you know, what, what is it? I'm not asking for an answer, but I'm just thinking, that people decide they're going to do something or not do something at a particular time, and they follow through with that. And,
Yeah.
and I think most people would find that very difficult to do.
Yeah. It's a training. It's a training. And that training is meant to then spill over into all the things that we do. I've shared this story before that there was a young man here going through conversion, and he had a company with different traders under him, right? And he came to me one night to talk, and he was all upset with himself, and he said, there was a guy who I had to fire, but I feel terrible. I wiped the floor with him. I wiped the floor with him when I kind of like threw him out of his job. And he said to me, he said, what good is it if I'm being so careful with this mitzvah and that mitzvah if that's how I treat another person? I said to me, 100% right. You're 100% right. I said, and you're missing the forest by focusing on the trees. And the mitzvot are meant to give a person this self-control, this appreciation of other people, this appreciation that I'm in God's world, and this appreciation that every person has that part of God, that spark of God in them, and needs to be treated as such. And therefore, yes, yeah, you're completely missing the point over here. Yes, at least you realize that you're missing the point, but you're missing the point, and you're right for taking yourself to task. And as I mentioned, you go into. I mentioned this in our kashrut series. You go into a store and you check the kosher certification. That's your Garden of Eden moment, right there. Is this the Eitz Hadat Tov Ra that I was commanded not to eat from, or is this from the other trees of the garden that I was commanded to eat and to enjoy? Right? Basar v'chalav, milk and meat. So he puts it very nicely. He says that milk is something which sustains life, right? Don't think of milk in the carton going into your cereal, but milk is what a mother produces to keep their child alive, and meat is a product of our taking life. And therefore, with a sensitivity towards life, we don't mix the two. Now, that is a chok. A chok will come to mitzvah that the reason for it, some will say there is no reason, others will say the reason is not shared with us, right? And we'll get to that soon, right? But all of these things, right? Even something like covering the challah Friday night, right? I remember a woman complained to me, said, my husband gets so angry when I forget to cover the challah. I said, oy vey. Talk about missing the whole point, right? We cover the challah because we want to show sensitivity towards the challah, that normally it gets the first blessing, and here it gets into the second slot because of the wine. So we're there to show sensitivity towards the challah. If you're going to yell at your wife about covering the challah, well, maybe be more concerned about the sensitivity towards your wife than sensitivity towards the challah. The challah is meant to teach us to be sensitive to even inanimate objects, and then certainly when we're dealing with people and feelings, right? Certainly, certainly, certainly. So what we have through all of these commandments that we have, all of these mitzvot that we have this regimented training that we are meant to go through, and to give us this muscle memory, to make that our natural, our instinctive response to situations that come our way. Does that always happen? No, it doesn't always happen. But it gives us the tools that with some simat dat, with some simat lev, with some thinking about it, then it does. It would, and it does have an effect on the person. So this is our muscle memory, right? That this is a way of life, that this is a practice that we have, right? Now, does that mean that every observant Jew is this paragon of virtue and honesty and integrity? Sadly, it does not mean that. Human beings are human beings, and a person can, like I said, like I told that young man, you could focus on the trees and ignore the forest, right? But the idea is asher kidishanu b'mitzvotav, that we are changed, we are transformed by the mitzvot that we do. And it is interesting to note that charitable donations, right? As a group, Jews, regardless of their religious ritual observance level, Jews are far ahead of the general population when it comes to that, which means that there are certain practices which have become such a part of the Jewish DNA that almost regardless of the person's ritualistic observance, that's become part of the nature. Yes, Dov.
I want to just say one thing. The tablets are the same size.
They are.
One is between people,
Yeah.
people, and
Adon Chaver and Adon Makam. Yes. 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 And actually, right, Dov pointed out that we have the two tablets that were given to Moshe on Mount Sinai, right? And one of them is between person and creator. The other one is person to person. And they're two equal tablets, right? Actually, though, when you think about it, one of the commentators points this out. The first five are very lengthy. The first five are very lengthy, right? I'm Hashem Yagar, to go out to the land of Egypt, the house of bondage, right? And then you have the next five, which are very, very short. Lo tirtzach, lo tinaf, lo tignov, right? Lo tanav re'acha eid shaker, right? They are much, much shorter. Now, if they're both the same size, then there have to be different fonts that were being used, right? You have to have a bigger font for the Beit Adon L'Chaveru, the person to person, smaller font between God. So when Moshe is coming down with the tablets, right? What are the headlines? Right? Headlines always written in a bigger font. It's the first thing that you see. What are the headlines? The headlines are the Beit Adon L'Chaveru, between the person to person. Yeah. So let's break down a little bit these different categories that we have, right? On page 2 of the sheet, right? Ki yishalcha bincha machal lemor ma'idut. When your child will ask you at a later point, saying ma ha'edut, what are the edut? Really are testimonies. The hachukim and the chukim and the mishpatim and the judgments, asher tziva Hashem Elokeinu etchem, that God has commanded us or commanded you. Right? This should sound familiar. Pesach Seder. Who asked this question?
The wise son.
The wise son. Yes. That's the chacham, the wise son. So he's asking about all of these different categories. So what are these categories? right?
Low, low.
Sorry?
The wise one or the wicked one?
No.
Lachem, the low, low.
Yeah. So you're asking by etchem, so they all ask
Oh,
that.
it's very.
That's one of the
similar
questions they
language.
asked.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So edut comes from the root word aid. An aid is a witness, right? It is a testimony. And some mitzvot that we have, they serve as witness or testimony to an idea or to an event. Right? We always say Shabbat is our testimony that God is a creator. If you take a glance up at the Ten Commandments we have over the Aron Kodesh, right? So number 4 is aligned with number 9. Number 4 is Shabbat. Number 9 is don't give false testimony. Why? Because by keeping Shabbat, we're giving true testimony that we are not just believing, we do our belief in God as a creator. How do we do our belief in God as a creator? That we stop molding and creating and changing the world on the Shabbat as God stopped molding, creating the world on that day. So that is our edut, our testimony. The holidays, they serve as our testimony, or the lulav, the etrog, the sukkah, the matzah, the not eating the chametz. All of those, they serve as our testimony, right? They are an oath. Also, they're referred to. An oath is a sign or a symbol. An oath also means a letter. A letter is, in fact, a sign. It's a symbol that that represents a certain sign, right? And only with the letters you have words and messages. Right? He gives the example of the American flag, right? It's not just a piece of colorful cloth waving in the wind, right? There's symbolism there. There's 13 stripes for the original 13 colonies, and there's stars for each state in the Union. Shabbat is called an oath, as we said before. It is our sign of God having created the world and that he still manages and runs the world, as we discussed last night, 2 nights ago, in the Rambam's 13 principles that we started to go through. So that's the edut. That is the testimony. Mishpatim, right? Mishpatim, the root of the word mishpatim is shafat, shofet, which means judge, right? Which means I could have judged that on my own. Don't murder, don't steal. Those are commandments that we understand, right? Using our own judgment, we would also have reached those conclusions.
What's the difference between shofet and din?
Din is a law, and a shofet
Okay.
is a dayan. A din is law, right? A dayan, right? And shofet are pretty close.
And
in
dayan
meaning.
comes from din, right?
Yeah. Dayan is the judge who will conclude what the din is, and the shofet is the one who judges. Yeah, the dayan and shofet are similar. And then we have ma'edut. We also have mishpatim. We had chukim. Okay, chukim are those laws which are basically incomprehensible, right? Now, right, is it there just as a test to see, are we serving our own intellect or are we serving God, right? That's one way that one could look at it, right? Another way that one could look at it is that there is a reason behind every chok, but it's not necessarily shared with us, right? Why wouldn't God share it with us? Well, it's interesting. There were 2 that the reasons were shared with us. A king should not have too many horses and should not have too many wives, lest they will lead him astray. Along came the one who we say was the wisest of all, Shlomo Melech, King Solomon, and said, "Oh, if that's the reason, I got it. I got it under control. No problem, right?" And it didn't cry, right? And then, right, I think 300 wives, and they have all these lists of very cute kids misquotes. So Solomon had 300 wives and 700 porcupines. Right, right. But actually, of course, those concubines. Yeah, but kids are beautiful. Yeah. So yeah. So so once when we have the reason, then often we can get ourselves in trouble. Oh, that's the reason. Well, don't worry, I got it, right? And we don't have it, right? But the chok really is there that am I serving myself or am I serving God? If I'm just doing that which resonates with me, I'm not really serving God. I call that smorgasbord Judaism. I'll have two of those, but I'll pass on that, right? And that's not an Eved Hashem, a servant of Hashem, is one who does the bidding of Hashem. There's an interesting in Devarim again. That's not, two on the list there. Ushmartem ba'asitem. You shall observe them and do them. Kihi chachmatchem ubinatchem. Because this is your wisdom and your understanding. Le'nei hamim, in the eyes of the nations. Asher yishma'un, who will hear or understand these laws and these chukim, and say, "Rak am chacham v'navon hagay gadol hazeh." Just how wise and discerning is this people? But it says it about the chukim. So it said that they're going to see our wisdom from the chukim. That seems a little bit strange, right? How will they see our wisdom when it comes to the chukim? Well, in fact, there are so many Jewish practices that the nations of the world recognize the wisdom. Shabbat. Oh, that's so antiquated. That's so outdated, right? On the contrary, right? In our crazy electronic world, where we're getting our tweets and our 87 WhatsApp groups and all of our emails and all of our messages and all, I mean, it's nonstop, right? The healthiest thing in the world is that any psychologist will say is you have to unplug a little. You have to have some time where you're not being inundated. Last night Natalie had about 16 women over the house, right, for this her next momentum trip, right, and it's amazing how many of these women over the years, right, so they started with, okay, we'll have a Friday night meal at home, right, with no phones, right, and just this appreciation of how important it is to Shabbatize to a certain degree, right? Ideally, the entire Shabbat, but whatever one does. Charlie Kirk was a big proponent of Shabbos. Even President Trump encouraged everybody to keep Shabbos a couple of weeks ago. Right. That's something that the world recognizes. Right. A couple are having marital struggles. And the spark has been lost, they feel, right? What is a very common approach that a marriage counselor will say? Have some time apart, physically, not emotionally, but physically. Have some time apart to build up that urgency, that longing, that desire, right? To build it up, right? Throughout, we have all of these. Right? He writes, and I'd be interested to speak to a OBGYN, right? He says that the commandment of Brit Milah and observance of family purity and mikvah serve to reduce the incidences of cervical cancer among Jewish women for centuries. I have a student of mine who's who's a very a top OBGYN. I'm going to send him this quote and ask him if he would concur with that, where that is. Maybe, right? But it's interesting. The pasuk in Tehillim, our last source, says, "Ki chok li Yisroel hu." It is a chok for Israel, mishpat le'elokei Yaakov. It is a mishpat, a judgment for the God of Jacob, right? Which means that for us, it might be a chok, right? That right, it is incomprehensible to us. But le'elokei Yaakov, to the God of Jacob, to Hashem, it's mishpat. It makes the most perfect sense. And those are the three categories that the wise son asks about and is quoted at the Pesach Seder. And altogether, this forms the fabric, the rhythm of an observant Jewish life, which gives us that muscle memory. It gives us that familiarity. It gives us that flow, that these are the things that we do. And that way it doesn't just stay in this cerebral realm, but it becomes kiddishanu. It becomes something that sanctifies us, permeates us, and ideally spills over into all of our dealings and all of our interactions. And it doesn't, right? It enhances the forest and makes it and helps to build that overall, we'll call it Adam HaShalem, a person who is Shalem, who is complete, who is full, right? In all of our dealings, whether it's with Hashem, whether it's one another, and doesn't allow these ideas to just be these, when I wear my cloak, that's when, but otherwise everything else can just can go to pot. Yes, James.
So you covered the testimonies like Shabbat and the holidays, and you covered the chukim. What would be some examples of some of the mishpatim? Is that like honest weights and measures, or
honest weights and measures? Don't steal, don't murder, right? Those are the classic examples of the mishpatim, right? A lot of the civil laws that most societies have, right? Of the 7 Noahide laws, one of them is that they should have a court system, and right, and that would be with those sort of mishpatim. Yes, Steve.
So what I got out of what you're saying is that the rituals are largely in service to the bigger picture things. In the Nevi'im, a lot of the Haftorahs talk about God says, I don't want your sacrifices if they're not brought. In other words, I don't want your rituals if it's not consistent.
If it's not going to spill over. Yeah.
Right, so it sounds like the rituals in and of themselves are in service to the greater principles. It's just that our approach to getting to the greater principles are through
right. Like famously, right? V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, that's the klal gadol, right? Love your neighbor yourself. That is the klal gadol, right? Standing on one foot. Everything else is an explanation of that, right? The way I see it is every mitzvah is meant to give us that God awareness, right? And that God awareness. And once a person has this God awareness, then that permeates who they are and the way they walk this earth. Yeah, that's what I would say. Yes, Dove.
Can we say that first aid is Adam Rishon?
I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
Can we say that first aid is Adam Rishon?
First aid. Okay, Dove. Okay. On that note. Okay, my friends, we'll call it over here. And like I said, Bezrat Hashem, please come next week. And Rabbi Rock should be picking up. I'll send out the email, except for just a few weeks that he'll be away. There will be Lunch and Learn, and that he will be picking that up. Again, the email will go out early next week. They'll just let everyone know which weeks he knows he will not be able to do it. right? I think it's 3 out of the 8 he'll be missing, but besides that, he'll be doing it.
Have a wonderful time.
Thank you. Thank
Bon
you very
voyage,
much.
safe travels.
Thank you. I'm still here this Shabbos. You're not getting rid of me quite yet.
Rabbi, what will you be doing in Israel?
I'll be doing some studying. I'll be doing some visiting. I'll be checking out different places in Israel, and yeah, doing a little surveying. Yeah, yeah.
You just said you can't dig a hole in Israel without finding archaeology.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We might actually do some army volunteering. Yeah, we'll see. It'll go very quickly.
Oh, oh,
Like everything.
oh. Speaking of that, even on flats, we should start there. Because we have a friend who said a month and a half of training after you get back is
I thought you were right on time.
you need to be built up to like 8 miles a day when you get back.
Yeah, so I don't have the time to do 8 miles a day. So
You'll get faster as you go.
I understand. I understand.
If you want to be comfortable for this and not be winded,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, I'll probably be a bit winded, but I'm sort of limited in terms of